But yeah, man. This is new for us too. Like I said, we typically talk to like creatives, artists, business owners.
Yeah.
I guess you're a business owner too.
Kinda. Yeah, kinda.
Definitely our first paranormal investigator. Is that what you would call yourself?
Yeah, paranormal investigator, ghost hunter, crazy person. You know, there's a couple different variations.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Bro, I watched some of your videos earlier, and I think you really have a knack for this thing. I think you're a great storyteller. Like how you can articulate like what you're talking about, explain the stuff. Like I think you're great at it.
I appreciate you, man. Appreciate it. And you know, I was watching a couple of the podcasts, and I mean, my friend Billy, he works at the Queen Mary in Los Angeles, which is like a famously haunted ship, and he wanted to start a podcast with me. And man, I was like fumbling all over the place trying to keep everything in one direction.
Like do an episode with you or start like a
he
like
wanted to start a podcast. I was like, I'll start as a co-host for like 10, but I can't do a full-time podcast. Yeah.
Why not?
Because I work full-time in construction, and then I also do the WTCW thing, and I also work for I'm starting to work for this boxing promotion called Brawler's Ball as a promoter. So
that's random. What kind of construction do you do?
It's just general construction, so we're subcontractors. We go from job to job. Right now we're on BAE, the shipyard right now.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
And what made you want to get into, I guess, the boxing promotion?
Well, I started off with boxing, but I've been doing MMA for a couple years, about 4 years now.
Promoting or actually training?
Like fighting and training, yeah.
Okay.
I competed amateur for a little bit, but I realized it wasn't really for me. You got to have your head all the way in the game if you want to compete. And
there is no half-assing combat sports.
No, not at all.
You got to be fully into it because there's maniacs out there that eat, breathe, and sleep that will tear you apart.
Absolutely. There's somebody out there who wants it more than you. So I was like, I can't be working and doing ghost hunting and then also try to compete. That's too much.
How old are you?
18.
Okay. See, I was telling bro, I was like, I don't think he's older than 21, but you're 18.
Yeah.
First of all, before we get into like ghost hunting, what got you into all that, what does WTCW stand for?
So when the group was founded in October of 2021, it was me and 3 of my childhood best friends. My name's William. I had my best friend Tate, Chris, and William Bateman. Oops, sorry.
Okay.
And pretty much I wanted to start a ghost hunting team because when I grew up, I experienced a haunting, and I was kind of questioning if all the stuff was real.
I saw that in one of your videos too. It was like when you were 7 years old.
Mm-hmm,
or no, I think it was in a different interview that you did.
Yeah. I've been on a couple podcasts, and people ask me how did I get into it, and that's why. So I was like, guys, let's go to the most haunted house in Virginia. That was our first investigation.
Which is?
The Ferry Plantation House by it's in by the Lynnhaven River in Virginia Beach. And we did that, and that's pretty much how WTCW started. Yeah, that's the name.
That was 2021.
Yeah.
So you had this experience when you were 7. Actually, we can kind of back up. We'll back up to that. But I wanted to kind of start out with asking you. So you had I think you said it in one of your Instagram posts, but you were like, ghost hunting, the most misleading hobby on earth.
Absolutely.
What is misleading about it?
So
I feel like it's pretty straightforward. You're hunting for ghosts.
Well, here's the thing. So a lot of people will get into ghost hunting because they saw on TV, they saw Ghost Adventures, Ghost Hunters, whatever it is. And in these shows, every episode, something crazy goes down. Somebody gets scratched, something gets thrown. Zach Bagans over here getting possessed, whatever it is. But when you do a real investigation, even in my videos, I just highlight the evidence, the storyline, my personal experience, and that's what you get to see. You don't see the other 7 hours we spent overnight in the building where we're just like talking to nobody. You know what I mean? We didn't get anything. So it's a very, very slow burn. Like ghost hunting is so boring. It can be so boring. It really can.
It's like actual hunting.
Yeah.
Like where the majority of it, you're just sitting there.
Mm-hmm.
There's no action. Yeah.
My comparison was almost like to fishing, right? You kind of just start sitting around. You're just sitting around waiting, and then something happens. You're like, did we get that? And that's pretty much what it is. That's why I said it was misleading, because people ask me like, oh, should I get into it? It seems like really crazy. Like these like people that are adrenaline junkies. I'm like, if you're going into it for a thrill, you're going to be sorely disappointed. It's very boring.
So it's more like, I guess, like subtle things that will happen that will be like subtle evidence for a ghost. What is there What is the most compelling evidence you've seen?
Like, out of all of paranormal investigation or just my personal stuff?
Let's go with yours and also like maybe other people's videos.
So I would say for me,
because I'm not to cut you off, because I'm not a super huge believer in this.
Yeah.
But I'm very open to it, and I was excited to just hear like your take on it. But
yeah, for sure. I mean, like I said, I don't judge anybody who's not into it, because when I started doing it, I wasn't even really a full believer. Really, I was just like watching all these paranormal shows, and I had an interest, and I was like, man, this all seems corny. Like, this looks fake. I'm like, I'm gonna go do it myself and see if it's real. And then I did it, and you know, it was pretty interesting. And yeah, for me, probably my most wild capture, I guess you could say, was probably the shadow figure in Trinity Apostle Church, because when you get into ghost hunting, you'll see hundreds and hundreds of pictures of shadow figures or apparitions. And most of the time, it's very blurry, or it's just like, I kind of see it, but I don't really see it. And it's usually not too compelling. But that picture, I was literally swiping through the shared folder between me and my other investigators after that investigation. And I saw the picture and I just swiped past it. I was like, yeah, it's just a dude in shot. Not until like 2 months later, I was swiping through while editing. And I was like, hold on. And I zoom in on the picture and I'm like, I can see the pews through this dude. This is not another investigator. It was such a pronounced figure. I just thought it was another dude. And it wasn't. So I was like, wow, that is wild. I
saw that. That's the video I watched. It was like in the church and they were like sitting on the benches or whatever. And it was like on the right side.
Yeah. I thought that was definitely my craziest catch. But I mean, there are some contenders there for sure. You know, it's not like by a long shot that's my craziest catch. We've seen some pretty crazy stuff. I mean, I can get into it a little bit later, but I would say that that's my best, my favorite.
Do you think ghosts want to be seen?
Well, it really just depends, because if
are they hiding from us, or just like they're just in this other realm that we can't see with, you know?
Well, my personal thing is like, I don't try to act like I fully understand the paranormal, because if it was something that people could understand, it would just be normal. There'd be no para about it. But if I were to theorize, I would say it really just depends. Because let's say ghosts are just people that have passed away. Some people might not want to be seen. Some people might just want to walk around, and some of them might be really, you know, malevolent, evil people, and they're alive. So now that they're dead, they're like, oh yeah, I'm about to fuck with this person hardcore just because they can do it. You know what I mean? I would say it really just depends on the haunting. There's some hauntings where I've went in and the homeowner and their whole family swears that, you know, there's a ghost and they can just feel it and they've seen stuff flying around. But then when my team shows up, nothing. You know what I mean? I think it really just depends. Some other people might say, oh, well, you know, the spirits can't interact with the human world like we can. It takes a lot out of them, which I agree with to an extent, because if ghosts could interact with the world the same way humans could, there wouldn't be a day of peace anywhere. It's like trillions and trillions of people have died over the course of history. So if they could just do whatever they wanted, there would be no chill moments on Earth ever. You know what I mean?
What would they do? What do you think they would do?
I mean, if they could interact freely and touch stuff and slam doors and whatever, I mean, what's to stop them from just throwing stuff around just because they want to be seen? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I believe in spirits. Like, you know, you've heard like there's like a spiritual warfare going on. It's like in this other realm that we can't perceive, but it's just good versus evil, and it's always happening. I've heard stories in my life from like people in Bosnia. Like, I knew this guy that swears that his dad seen ghosts, and like his dad was like an alcoholic, and he was coming home from one day super drunk, and he was like walking down the street past his graveyard, and he said that he's seen the whole graveyard just burst in flames, and like he ran home and like woke up the next day and it wasn't on fire. Right. But I don't know if that was like him being drunk or, you know, but I know there's people that really believe in it.
Absolutely.
So you had this experience at 7 years old that kind of got you into it. What was that experience?
Okay, I'll get into that a little bit. So it's a very long story because it happened over the course of from when I was 7 years old to 11 years old. But I will try and summarize. So me, my mom, and my two sisters, we had just left our old house and we wanted to rent somewhere. So we rent a house in Princess Anne County for super cheap. Super beautiful house, big backyard, front yard, super nice neighborhood, 2 stories, garage attached, really, really nice house. And the rent was super cheap. And my mom was like, you know, what's the catch?
Why is it so cheap?
Yeah. And my mom really said to the real estate agent, well, what's the catch, right? Is there like, you know, mold problems or what's up with this house? Why is it so cheap? She's like, oh, well, you know, the 2 previous homeowners died in the master bedroom and that might freak some people out. And my mom was like,
Did they tell you how they died?
I don't know. From what I'm aware, it was from old age, but that's really just me guessing. And me, my mom, my 2 sisters, we didn't really believe in ghosts. You know, my mom's raised us very Christian, so I was like, yeah, it's whatever. They died. They're in heaven now. So we move in. And for about the first year, super quiet, right? Literally nothing paranormal happens ever, except for this very mild feeling of anxiety when you are alone. But then again, it's just like, I was a little kid. You know what I mean? Kids don't like being alone. So I was like, yeah, whatever. Now, the problem began when my sister started complaining that I'll give you a little lay of the house. All of the bedrooms were upstairs. So my bedroom was at the back of the hallway up the stairs. My mom's was right next to mine, and my sister was in the master bedroom, which was to the left of the stairs. And she lived in there, and about a year in, she starts complaining that she's hearing footsteps above her room in the attic. And my mom's like, yeah, whatever. You know what I mean? She's like, oh, you're a little kid. I don't care.
Also, your mom gave her the master bedroom? That's fire.
Yeah. Well, it's because my 2 sisters shared the master bedroom.
Okay.
Yeah.
So she's hearing these footsteps in the attic about a year in.
Yeah, about a year in. So my sister Sage moved in with my dad, and my sister kept complaining. She was scared. She'd always run to my mom's room or my room scared at night. So I was like, I'll spend the night in your room. Get my sleeping bag. I spend the night in her room. And sure enough, that night I hear footsteps above the attic, and then me and my sister go to my mom about it, and we're complaining about it. My mom, she doesn't do anything. She's just like, you know, tell it to leave in the name of Jesus. She's super Christian. So me and my sister are like, okay.
In the name of Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, that's what she said to do. Yeah. It didn't work. And pretty much the activity just ramped up from there. And I would say the turning point for me where I was like, okay, this is haunted. Because I was a kid. I was just like, oh, I don't know, trying to rationalize, like maybe, you know, there's like a raccoon up there or something. It was this one day, my sister was at school, my mom was at work, and I was sick at home. And my mom couldn't afford to miss work. So I was home alone, and my sister had this pet hamster. And she's like, you need to feed the hamster while I'm at school. I'm like, okay, sure. So I'm home alone. I'm about 9 years old by this point, and I go into the bedroom. And it was it was like indescribable. It was an overwhelming sense of fear and anxiety as soon as I entered the master bedroom. And I'm like kind of a confrontative person. So even when I was a kid, so I just felt it. It was almost as if I was in the room with like a mountain lion that you couldn't see, just primal fear. And I just said aloud, I was like, hey, you know, I feel like somebody's in here. You know, I know you're in here. And I just said that aloud. I didn't know what else to do. And my sister's birthday had just passed. There was these birthday balloons in the corner of the room. And after I said, I know you're in here, whoosh, gets like volleyball spiked across the room. Hand on a stack of Bibles. I saw that, and I immediately ran downstairs and ran all the way down the street to my buddy Matthew's house.
The balloons swiped over.
The balloons.
Okay.
I said, I know somebody's in here. They got smacked across the room. No fan in that room, no nothing. And get smacked across the room. I ran all the way to my buddy Matthew's house. I literally spent the night at his house. That's how scared I was. And after that, the activity got a lot worse. And I can get into a little bit why, theologically speaking, that would happen, because there is a theory of process in a haunting. But I communicated with it.
The process of it getting like progressively...
Yeah, it gets worse and worse.
Less subtle?
Yeah. So Ed Warren, one of the first ever paranormal investigators, said that there were 5 stages to paranormal or demonic haunting. Step 1 is invitation. You put your foot in the door. Me saying, I know you're here, do something, was me putting my foot in the door and pretty much challenging it to do something, which it did. So now it has its foot in the door, and after that, activity got a lot worse. slowly over time, over months and months, it went from, hearing like knocks to hearing like footsteps coming up the stairs, creaking. Eventually got to a point where doors would just slam and we would come home and rooms in the house would be just trashed. And my sister would wake up every single morning with her attic door wide open and the closet to get to the attic open as well, as if whatever entity was in there would literally leave the attic and go down into her bedroom. And every morning she would wake up like that. And I didn't believe her because as much as these weird things were happening, I raised my whole life being a Christian. I couldn't believe that we were experiencing a haunting, right? Yeah. So I spent the night in her room and we wake up the next morning and the door's open. It happened every morning. And eventually got to a point where my sister was telling my mom that every night she was having this dream where a black shadow would come out of the bathroom in the master bedroom and start dragging her out of her bed.
Your mom or your sister?
My sister was having that dream, and she started telling my mom this. And when she would wake up from the dream, she would be on the floor, like almost as if she had been being dragged towards the bathroom. And she had this dream 5 days in a row. And every time she said that she would wake up closer and closer to the bathroom. And one morning, I am awoken to her literally screaming her head off. And this was when I was about 10. And me and my mom run into the room, thinking something's horribly wrong. And she's in the bathroom with the door locked. And she comes out and she tells us that she had the dream and she woke up in the bathroom, like inside of the bathroom. So my mom, being a Christian, now believes that this is fully demonic and she doesn't know what to do. So we
also, not to cut the story off,
Yeah,
also
of
on
course.
Christianity, I'm Muslim. I don't know too much about the scripture in Christianity.
Yeah.
So do ghosts not exist in Christianity?
So within the different branches of Christianity, they have different beliefs. So all of the Protestant denominations of Christianity, so pretty much anything that isn't Catholic, don't believe in ghosts at all. Heaven, hell, angels, demons, God, and the devil. That's it. No ghosts. No room for any of that. Whereas
When you die, you're
Yeah.
gone from this world.
Right,
Wherever
completely.
else you go.
In that belief, which is why we couldn't believe we were having a haunting. My mom is a Baptist or a non-denominational, but within Catholicism, they believe in ghosts and purgatory. And Catholicism is the oldest branch of Christianity. So it's kind of a Christian belief, but it also isn't. It really just depends on what denomination you are. My mom was not Catholic, so she didn't believe in any of that.
So your sister is having this dream. 5 days in a row, she ends up waking up closer and closer to the bathroom.
And then one morning, she wakes up inside of the bathroom.
In the bathroom.
And starts screaming her head off.
She's wake up like mid taking a shit. She's just taking a shit in the bathroom.
You see the shadow figure there, just like, hold on, like get out real quick.
Okay, but yeah.
And my mom,
also, how far, I guess, was this into living there?
this was about 3 years into living there.
Okay.
Like I said, it was real quiet the first year. It was nothing was wrong. But so she wakes up in the bathroom screaming, and it was only 2 days later that we had a priest come into the house and perform a minor rite on the house, which is
What's that?
pretty much a blessing of the home, a blessing. And he anoints the whole house and does this blessing while me and my sister are at school. And after that, the activity pretty much just ceased entirely, and we moved out.
So what was the blessing for if your mom didn't believe in ghosts?
It was to cast out what she believed to be a demon.
So that's different than a ghost.
Yeah, the ghost.
Okay.
So the key difference between a ghost and a demon is ghosts can do pretty much everything a demon can. It can open doors, it can throw stuff around, it can move things. The only things that set a demon apart is that it can cause demonic possession. Ghosts can't possess anything.
They can interact with the physical world, but
Yeah.
they can't possess a person.
No, they can't.
Okay.
Only demons can do that. And demons can set things on fire. Those are the two things. So if you see a fire within a haunting, demon, dead giveaway. Possession within a haunting, demon, dead giveaway. Everything else, you have to, it's blurry whether or not it's a ghost or a demon. My mom believed it was a demon.
So this priest comes, blesses the house, and it actually works.
Yeah, after that, we didn't experience any activity, and we moved out shortly after, about a couple months after the house was blessed. It wasn't until later in my life that I found out the whole picture of the story, which was pretty much that the 2 previous homeowners were practicing occultists, Freemasons. Occultist Freemasons. There's a 2 branches of Freemasonry. There's the building stuff and the occult Freemasonry.
What is the occult side?
Pretty much worshiping demons. Yeah, that's pretty much all it is.
Did you find how they died eventually?
Still no, but I found out they were Freemasons because I contacted the person who owned the home previously, and they told me that was fact because I told them about all the things I had experienced, and they were like, yeah, we did find out that the 2 previous homeowners were involved in occult activity.
I'm also wondering like how much of this could be your mind playing tricks on you. Because I remember like, okay, like especially if you're like watching scary stuff as a kid,
Right.
if you're watching like haunted videos or whatever.
Yeah.
Because I remember even just being a kid and like, it'll be nighttime. I'm going downstairs to get something to drink or something from my room. And it's like, I'm super scared going downstairs. Like I might run to the fridge or run back upstairs.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's just irrational fear. And then my mind is playing tricks on me. So it's like, how much could that be your mind playing tricks on you?
Well, that's what I was saying earlier. When I got into ghost hunting, I got into it because I didn't know if I believed. Even though I had experienced all those things, I still was, in the
unsure.
same mindset of like, well, I was a kid, you know what I mean? Like I was scared of like the dark, you know what I mean? So the only thing that kind of validated my experiences of what I had happen in that house was the fact that me and my sister both witnessed it. And that it wasn't just visual manifestation of the paranormal. It wasn't like we saw shadow figures, or spirits out of the corner of our eye. It was poltergeist activity, which is pretty much when things move. Like, doors would slam. We would hear it. It would literally wake me, my sister, and my mom up. There was a point in time where my Aunt Beth was living with us. And I remember she storms up while me, Annie, and Sage are with each other hanging out. Those are my 2 sisters. And she stormed in. She was like, will you guys stop stomping around? And we were all sitting on the floor. We hadn't got up for the last 45 minutes. I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, I hear y'all stomping around up here. We're like, we're not doing anything. You know what I mean? She had no idea about any of the haunting stuff. She just was hearing it. And, it was just a lot of people entangled in what had happened. And that kind of helps me believe that what I saw was true. But then again, like I said, when I got into it, I was like, of the same mindset that you were in, like, well, could I have been imagining it? You know what I mean?
Being as your sister was the one that had these dreams, is she involved with what you're doing right now? Like, where's her mind at with it right now?
She wants nothing to do with it. She was terrified.
Still to this day.
Yeah, she was the center of the haunting because she lived in the master bedroom. So what I experienced was literally like ripples of the activity because I lived on the same floor as her. She was in the hot spot. She lived in the master bedroom. So she was the first one to hear them footsteps. She saw pretty much all of the activity. I only saw maybe like half of it. So to this day, like with me doing the ghost hunting thing, she doesn't want anything to do with it. She's terrified.
She's like, well, you need to stop messing with that stuff.
You wouldn't believe how many times I get that. Even from non-religious people, like, you don't want to mess with stuff you don't understand. I'm like, well,
Bro, so I had a kind of a personal experience with something maybe similar. So when I was in high school, I kind of went through this phase where like I really like lost myself and I was going through like a dark path. And my mom swore like I was possessed, like a evil energy got into me or something. And I literally, like that summer when I went to Bosnia, she took me to this lady that was like, she wasn't a priest, but she prayed over me. I like laid on her couch and she prayed over me. Well, actually, just to back up, before I started going through that dark phase, one of the trips I took to Bosnia, there was this kid, the same kid that I mentioned earlier, where his dad saw the fire in the graveyard.
Yeah,
he used to be into ghosts. And he would really try to summon ghosts. And I would literally stay night at his house and he would have like candles. I don't know exactly what the fuck he was doing. Like I'm like in high school. I'm like a kid. But he was like had candles. He was like writing shit on paper,
right.
burning it.
I don't want to cut you off.
Yeah.
Can you describe what it looked like? Because if I can get a picture of it, I can identify what he was doing.
What he was doing looked like? I can't really remember fully. But I know he was like lighting candles. He would write shit on paper. He would burn the paper. Like try to talk to the ghost or whatever the fuck he was trying to summon. But like soon after that, when I came back to America is when I started going down this path. And then like my mom was thinking that was going on with me. So the next time we went, she had me like go to this lady that literally I laid on her couch. She prayed over me. She gave me this like necklace that she like prayed a bunch on, and I wore that for like years. But like after that, I started feeling better. So I don't know how true that is, but that's kind of a personal experience I had with that.
Wow.
Have you heard of anything like that?
Oh yeah, I hear stories like that all the time of people. So there's a difference. So a lot of people think it's like you encounter a demon, and then if you're experiencing anything demonic, you are possessed, and it just goes from like demon existing to possession. But it's not that quick. What you were likely experiencing, assuming that there was actually anything paranormal involved, would have been demonic oppression, which is pretty much the demon is tormenting you, trying to wear you down mentally so that eventually you'll be vulnerable enough to let it in, to fully possess you. It's a process. Like I said, Ed Warren, the first ever paranormal investigator, he said that there was a process to demonic possession: invitation, infestation, oppression, and then full-blown demonic possession.
Is that 4 or 5?
4, sorry, I misspoke.
Okay.
4. Or the 5th one was just death. It was what he said.
Can you break down those 4? So we kind of went over the invitation.
So
let's say hypothetically in that situation that I went through, he was inviting it.
Yeah.
Even though he was inviting it, I was there.
Right.
So that I guess that's like a rollover effect.
That would be infestation. So I'll cite some very famous paranormal cases here. So the first stage, invitation, could be, getting into contact with somebody who is practicing black magic, Santeria, Palo Mayombe, black magic religions. And that would be the invitation, right? You made contact. Next will be infestation, which is pretty much the demon is there, it's with you, but it's not doing anything. It's waiting for its chance to strike, because the belief within Catholicism, and those are like the big demon guys. They are the biggest demonology researchers. Yeah, Catholics. Their belief is pretty much that if you challenge the demonic today, it's not going to strike tomorrow. It might not strike in weeks. It might not strike in months. It will wait even years until you're most vulnerable. Then they play dirty. Demons play very dirty in their belief. So contact it's not always immediate. So infestation is just the demon waiting, kind of lingering, waiting for, maybe your mental health gets really bad. Maybe you're going on dark times, and then it'll strike. So now we move on to oppression. This is the hearing whispers at night. The, doors are slamming, seeing apparitions, seeing things that just give you intense anxiety, intense fear. And they believe the demons can feed off of that fear. And eventually, once they've worn you down enough, they will begin full-blown demonic possession, which is pretty much taking over your vessel spiritually and taking full control of you. And the objective of why a demon would do this, because it's not just a horror movie thing where, people made this up so it can be scary. They believe that the demon's motivation for possessing a person is ideally so it can harm other people or eventually drive the possessed person to die, pretty much, so it can claim their soul and take it to hell. Is the Catholics' belief. So
a lot of these like paranormal movies and haunted stuff come from like religious beliefs or texts?
Yes. So I'm going to talk about the Conjuring movies, because everyone knows those are based on true stories, right? Have you seen the Conjuring movies?
I think so. Have you seen those, Haley? Okay.
Yeah. Very, very popular series. And pretty much Conjuring 1 is based on the Perron family haunting. In Connecticut, the Perron family moves into an old farmhouse.
Wait, is that the true story it's based on?
That's the true story it's based on, the Perron family haunting. And they move into this farmhouse. The farmhouse has spirits connected to it. They experience the haunting. The Conjuring 2, based on the Enfield poltergeist. Family moves into a house in Enfield, London, starts getting, experiencing activity, and, eventually the youngest girl gets possessed. Conjuring 3, The Devil Made Me Do It, which was based on 2 cases. The possession and murder of Arnie Cheyenne Johnson, which pretty much him and his girlfriend moved into a house that had a demon in it. The demon possessed the girlfriend's younger brother, David Glatzel, And it's a whole web. It's a whole story. I'm not going to get into it too hard, but pretty much David Glotzel becomes possessed. Then, when Ed and Lorraine Warren get involved and begin exorcising the demon out of David Glotzel, Arnie Cheyenne Johnson is present during this exorcism. And Arnie made the mistake of challenging the demonic. It's never something you want to do. During the possession, Arnie says, "Hey, leave my little buddy alone. Why don't you take me instead?" That's what he said to the possessed David Glotzel. Fast forward 5 months later, and Arnie Cheyenne Johnson murders his boss while possessed. And what makes that story compelling is that there were audio tapings of all of the possessions, all the exorcisms, and it was the first time in U.S. history that somebody argued not guilty by reason of demonic possession.
And they won?
No.
Okay. They just argued it. Yeah.
No. And I mean, the argument that Ed and Lorraine Warren went off of is before every court case, if you have to swear on the Bible, so you're acknowledging that God exists, why are we ignoring the fact the devil exists? That was pretty much their argument.
Makes sense, though.
Yeah, but the judge was like, I'm not going to listen to you. And they couldn't even present any of the evidence they had accumulated. But all of these stories are based off of true hauntings, true possessions, because in Hollywood, they exaggerate it, but it still follows the same source material. It does. So possessions, if you're somebody who wants to look into it, very compelling. There's a lot of stories that, just are, they are unexplainable, really. There are a lot. I can touch on some more famous ones later that were had a lot of research put into them and still nobody could explain it. But yeah,
we can get into some more of those famous ones and possibly if there's some science, what are the most scientific cases where it was actually right. Scientifically studied.
Oh yeah,
the most professional, what somebody might believe over some just random researcher.
Yeah.
But okay, so you have this experience in this house. You guys move out.
Right.
Do you start researching and just looking into all these things at that point?
Well, we move out and I didn't experience any paranormal activity since after that. I didn't live in a haunted house. I never experienced anything again. And when I was 15, I started getting into all these paranormal ghost hunting shows. And I'm like, well, these look fake. And most of them are, to be frank. And
what are some popular ghost hunting shows that you know for sure are fake?
Ghost Adventures is fake. If you watch Twin Paranormal on YouTube, they're very popular. They're fake. Sam and Colby have been caught faking stuff multiple times. These are some of the most popular people in the paranormal space. Ghost hunters have been caught being fake. A lot of them.
Is the demographic that watches these videos, if they are fake, could you compare it to wrestling, where most of the fans know it's a fake wrestling match, but it's still entertaining, so they're just still watching it and they still love it? Or is more of the demographic just actually believing it? I
would say that a lot of the demographic genuinely believe these things. Now, for the more extremely dramatized shows like Ghost Adventures, I think a lot of the audience is aware that it's fake. But the reason I think there's really a problem with it is that to call yourself a paranormal investigator is implying that you're a researcher. You're furthering the study of something. Whereas what these people are doing, they're not furthering anything. They're not bringing credible people on, from the scientific community to help back them. They're not doing anything. They just go into a haunted location with ghost hunting specific equipment, which barely anyone knows how it works. I'm one of the people that do know how it works, and most of them are not reliable at all. And it's just not really furthering the study of the field at all. And I think that's disingenuous to imply that it is all real. And
now, what are some shows that you would say are furthering the field?
Paranormal Nightmare with the Foreman brothers. They always keep it real. BuzzFeed Unsolved with Shane Madej, Ryan Bergara. I can say for a fact that one's completely real. Same thing with Ghost Files. But these shows aren't as popular because, to be like I said, it's the most misleading hobby because they're just not as entertaining as Ghost Adventures. Ghost hunting is pretty boring. It is
because the real life experience of it isn't that entertaining.
It's never that intense. which is disappointing to a lot of people. Like I've had people get into investigating and they'll see I have a decent amount of experience and they'll be like, is the stuff that happens in the movies like really true? Like in The Conjuring, like does, plates and all this stuff go flying everywhere during investigations? I'm like, no. No, it doesn't happen. And they get all disappointed. I'm like, yeah, sorry.
Okay, so you're like 15. You start watching these shows.
Yeah.
That's kind of where you're at.
And I was watching them and I was like, well, this stuff seems very dramatized, but I had these experiences when I was younger. I'm curious if they were even real. And you know what I mean? And if they were something that was completely true and I really did experience demonic infestation, could I experience something like that again to validate what I had happen further? So that's what I did. I said, my 3 best friends, I'm like, hey guys, I'm going to rent out the Fairy Plantation house this summer for my birthday. Do you guys want to come through with me? And they're like, sure. And that was pretty much when WTCW started.
So what was the first investigation?
The Fairy Plantation house, the first official one. Yeah.
Where's that at? Is that one of the ones you guys said you went to? So what are the 3 that you guys went to? And let me know if you've been to one of these. Yeah. I think you went to what was it? It was some Waverly something?
Waverly Village Sanatorium in Kentucky. We did Bell Witch Cave in Adams, Tennessee. And what was the other one? Savannah, Georgia. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Have you been to any of those?
No, those are way out there. They're super famous, though. Waverly Hills is extremely famous. Bell Witch Cave is extremely famous. My mom actually went to the Savannah Hotel, actually, when she was with my sister for like a cheer meet.
And also, what was the hotel that we drove by in, was it L.A. that you said was haunted?
Mm-hmm.
Have you heard of that one?
Yeah, that one's
Is that
very
legit?
famous. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of them, you can tell if a location is legit dependent on their marketing, really. So if you look at a location and literally all they talk about is how haunted they are, 9 times out of 10, they probably did something to enhance, they're trying to draw in a certain audience that already believes in the paranormal. But if you look at something like the Fairy Plantation House, it's a history museum before it's a haunted location, really.
So the ones that are or may actually be haunted don't try to like over market it being haunted.
Yeah. I would say that there are definitely haunted locations that lean into it. I would just say be wary, because if you think about it, you have a consumer base of paranormal believers who are going there expecting to experience a haunting. And if they don't, they're going to be very disappointed in their stay.
It's bullshit. It's fake.
Right. Yeah. They're going to be very disappointed if nothing happens. So you have to consider, will they introduce certain factors that might make it seem like it's haunted when it's not, like rigging light bulbs to go on and off and stuff like that. Conjuring House got caught doing that. That's probably one of the most famous haunted locations in the U.S. And they rent out to investigators, and they got caught doing all sorts of stuff in there.
So I guess you've only been in Virginia, to places in Virginia.
Yeah. So on my website, I kind of talk about it a little bit. For me, I always look up to Ed and Lorraine Warren, and pretty much 90% of people in the paranormal community do.
What's his name?
Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Okay.
Yeah. So just as a little bit of backstory on those two, Ed Warren was a Catholic, so was Lorraine Warren, and he was only one of 7 demonologists in the world, which are people who their job is literally to research the demonic and look into demonic hauntings for the Catholic Church. And the other 6 demonologists were members of the clergy, priests, cardinals, reverends, etc., or shaman too. And but he was none of that. He wasn't a part of the clergy. He just was recognized by the Catholic Church as a demonologist for his knowledge on the paranormal. Lorraine Warren was a psychic medium, and she was also a Catholic. And they founded the biggest paranormal society in the United States, which is the New England Society for the Paranormal. They are responsible or had a hand in pretty much every famous haunting in the United States. All the Conjuring movies. They owned the Annabelle doll. They were at Amityville. They were at, the Perrin family haunting, Arnie Johnson. They were at everything pretty much. Yeah. The most famous guys, the pioneers of it, really.
That's them right there, Kieran. What's like the first line on their Wikipedia? Go to the top.
Yep.
Let me read like the first couple. What does that say? Zoom in on that. You go to the left. Ed Warren and Lorraine Warren. You can highlight it. I'm having an extra hard time seeing this shit today.
I
Zoom
can
in
read
some
it.
more. There you go. Were American paranormal investigators and authors associated with prominent cases of alleged hauntings? Edward was a self-taught and self-professed demonologist, author, and lecturer. Lorraine professed to be, what does that say?
Clairvoyant.
And what? Light trance medium. Okay, so this is who you respect the most in this field.
For sure. They definitely have a lot of things detracting from them. As time goes on, more things come out about them. But at the end of the day, they were the pioneers, really, who started everything.
So you're oh, go ahead.
Yeah. That's pretty much it. They were the first ever real ghost hunters. Yeah.
Do they have like videos of like them doing this, or just like before fucking people were making videos on this stuff?
They started in 1952. And
so they have like journals, just papers on it?
Yeah, they had audio tapes, lots and lots of audio tapes. Later on in their career, they did catch video recordings of exorcisms and, poltergeist activity. Ed Warren was probably one of the first people to capture paranormal on video. I think the video was recorded in like the late 80s, and it was of him on a home investigation. And he says that he commands a spirit to reveal itself, and a table literally gets pulled towards him, which normally if I saw that from anybody else, I would be like, nice fish wire trick. But with him, nobody was doing that. No, this was the first paranormal video pretty much to catch mainstream attention. Nobody had really thought to do something like that. You know what I mean? And he just has insane credibility, and Nesper has worked with a lot of very credible people from the scientific community as well.
So you're in high school really getting into this stuff. Were your friends like, bro, what do you... Because I didn't know anybody in high school that was into this for real.
Yeah, well, it was like a half joke for some people. So the super skeptical people thought I was crazy, which fair enough, you know what I mean? It's like when you meet somebody and you find out they're a paranormal investigator, the automatic assumption is that they're super hardcore in their belief, which for me isn't necessarily true. I mean, there's a lot of hauntings I'll look at, I'll be like, that's fake. I don't believe that, you know what I mean? But I see where they're coming from if they don't know me personally. So some people would joke, and I started people started talking about me at school. Like I would be, in the lunch line or, just somewhere out in the hallway, and people would be like, oh my God, it's the paranormal guy, as like a half joke. But my friends thought it was really cool. A lot of people would just ask me to go out on my investigations just to see what it was like.
To come with you?
Yeah, just to see. It actually got to a point where so many people asked me to go on an investigation that I was like, well, if I were to just take everyone on an investigation individually, it would probably take like 10. So I'm just gonna have an event. So on August 10th of this summer, I was like, here's Vintage Trixie, which is an antique store who has had haunted objects donated to them, and all the employees claim they've experienced some pretty intense paranormal activity. Ghost Hunting 101, here's the event. 25 ticket max.
I saw that was your first event. How'd that go?
Great. Oh my gosh, it was incredible. It was like the first 30 minutes I gave a lecture on the paranormal, talking about the difference between ghosts and demons, the difference between like different theological beliefs, which you said you're a Muslim earlier, which it's like one interesting thing about the three like monotheistic religions, Islam, Judaism, and Christianity, is they believe like a lot of similar things. They just put different words on it. Like Christianity believes in demons. Judaism believes in Dybbuk, which is just a demon in a different language. And in Islam, correct me if I'm wrong, they believe in jinns, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
See, even Islam, I'm not super religious, so I'm not going to be able to tell you everything on Islam.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think so.
They believe in jinns, which is a malevolent spirit, which is pretty much the equivalent of a demon as well. Pretty much every religion throughout history has the concept of demons existing. They just put it in different fonts. So.
They all have like heaven and hell.
No, I wouldn't say that. That's not true.
Okay.
That's not true. But a lot of them believe in demons. They just have it in a different language or like a slightly different definition. But demons are not a new concept, not even remotely. Not even remotely.
So earlier you mentioned that like some of these fake ones, they don't further the field. They're kind of just like pretty much making content at this point.
Right.
What about the investigative part of it? So you're a paranormal investigator. So now that's a whole skill in itself to be able to investigate something, research it, create a storyline, put it together, present it to people in a way to where it makes sense, takes people on this journey.
Right.
How did you get into that part of it?
This was my mindset about it. I had kind of had this bad taste in my mouth about a lot of these very famous investigators. And I was like, I need to identify what the actual issue is here, right? Because if I don't identify the actual issue, it's just going to look like I'm salty because they're famous. I'm not, right? So I was like, here's what I think the problem is that they're not furthering the field. It's just for entertainment. Like, there's nothing compelling actually happening here. If you show, here's an example that I've talked about quite a bit. So the way I put things is if somebody's experiencing a haunting in their home and they call me, I'm not there to be their savior. My job is to go in and identify the problem, whatever the problem may be. So it'll literally, like, my team goes in with...
And people have called you for this?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, okay. We've gone on, in the last 3 years, 48 investigations spanning from museums, businesses, and just house calls.
And how many of these were people that called you and was like, yeah, hey, I think my place is haunted. Can you come check it out?
I think it was about eight people to this point. Yeah. And I'll go in. I literally use regular home inspection equipment. Like I said, I'm there to identify the problem, whatever the problem is. So I'll literally go in like carbon monoxide detector to make sure there's no mold issues that's causing the family to have this kind of mold-induced paranoia. And
that's a thing?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. You breathe in mold for extended period of time or carbon monoxide. And
I know you can die from carbon monoxide.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. If you're exposed to it for an extended period of time, you can cause this kind of like weird hysteria almost.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And they'll believe they're seeing things. So check for mold, check for pretty much try and figure out what the issue is. Saying that something is a ghost is the absolute last resort, for me. Like, I will test everything until I say it's a ghost, pretty much. Because A, I don't want to feed the family ideas that might not be true and further their paranoia because they're calling me to try and help them out. So let's say I get a house call and I've tried everything. I, talk to them and kind of give them like a little bit of a psychological analysis of like, has anyone else in the house seen this, or is it just you? Do you have a history of, this? Are you on any medications that might cause, hallucinations, things like this?
They're like, nah, just a little bit of shrooms, a little bit of acid here and there.
Yeah. And, a tiny psychological analysis. I'm no psychologist, so I'm not going to act like, they have my seal of approval, but I'll test the water. I'll go in with my, I'll look for mold. I'll look for, dirty vents, anything that might cause anything that would be like, this isn't a ghost. Let's say I realize or I think it's a ghost. I'm the middleman. So literally all I do is I stay in the house until I'm 100% sure there is or isn't a ghost. And then I'll say, here's what we can do from here. It's a ghost. So I can either contact the local church for you. If you're a Christian, I can sage the home. If you're a spiritualist, I can do, whatever you want me to do. Or I can just leave if you don't mind your house being haunted. You know what I mean? I always try to forward them to the expert. I'm the middleman. I just want to figure out what's going on, really.
Have you had to call a priest or pastor?
Oh, yeah. I work with Father Grant from Trinity Apostle Church. Yeah, so if somebody's experiencing and they want a blessing, he's the guy I contact. I have, I try to make connections with people, you know what I mean? Because I'm no expert, really. I'm an expert in the paranormal. And that's it. I'm not going to pretend I'm a priest or a scientist or a psychologist. I just try and figure out whether there's ghosts there. And you have to incorporate a little bit of those elements, but you can't act like you're an expert. But for me, it was like, well, what makes paranormal evidence compelling? It's unexplainable. So rather than going in with a piece of equipment like a REM pod, do you know what a REM pod is?
Mm-mm.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. The majority of people, if they're not already in the paranormal community, you show them a clip of a REM pod going off, they're going to be like, what am I looking at? This isn't compelling to me. You know what I mean? So when I use my equipment, I'm not...
What is that? A REM pod?
A REM pod It's a small device. It's circular and it has a long antenna and it projects a field. And if anything disturbs that field, it'll sound off very loudly. It has about a 6-inch range. So the belief is that if something penetrates that field and nobody's nearby, that it's a ghost setting it off. What they won't tell you is, like I said, this is where we get into the majority of people don't know how ghost hunting equipment works.
Could it be like dust particles or something?
Here's the issue. A lot of people don't understand ghost hunting equipment. I do, because I'm very particular. The REM pod is built using a mini theremin circuit. And a theremin is an instrument that is to be played just with your hands. It's a Russian instrument. You like hover within a field and it makes noise. That's all a REM pod is. It's just a small theremin. And, you know, the theory is, well, it's an invisible person entering that field and disturbing it. And that's why it's going off. What they won't tell you is that a theremin can be disturbed and go off with radio waves. So if you enter the same room as a REM pod with a walkie-talkie or a radio, which a spirit box is actually a modified radio, with your phone, your smart device, it can set off your REM pod. Any device you get with that REM pod while any radio waves are in the room, not compelling.
So do you not use those for that reason?
Nope. I was saying the equipment I use, I barely use any ghost hunting equipment. Motion sensors, cameras, audio recording device, temperature monitoring device, and that's it. Maybe I'll bring an EMF reader to monitor spikes in electromagnetic field. And that's it.
So I guess the temperature will change if there is a
if there's
ghost.
Like I said in my Trinity Apostle Church video, people believe that, you know, paranormal activity can cause these strange hot spots and cold spots within a room without any identifiable source. So for me, I'm like, okay, I'll monitor the temperature in a room. So I talked about it in my Trinity Apostle Church video, an ATDD, ambient temperature deviation device, which just goes off if the temperature deviates from the room temperature by, you know, whatever amount of degrees, and it'll let you know, it'll sound off. Now, if it goes off, you got to be like, is there a vent pointing towards this device? Is there a fan on right now? And if there is no identifiable source, then it's unexplained. It's unexplainable. It's paranormal, right? Inherently. So I use devices like that where it's like you show any person off the street who doesn't believe in the paranormal a REM pod going off, they're going to be like, what am I looking at? You show them a motion sensor going off with nothing in front of it, then they're going to be like, well, that's weird. You know what I mean? That's why I think it's important to use not ghost hunting specific devices, because these devices are built to create paranormal activity. You know what I mean?
Oh, to create like what would seem like
right.
paranormal
Yeah,
activity.
exactly. That's
So
what
you're
I'm
saying most or all these paranormal devices, detecting devices, are made to be fake, or
they're not. I wouldn't say they're made to be fake, but they're just not reliable as evidence. Like you show a scientist an EMF reader going off, they'll be like, okay, well, you're in a house with electrical wiring literally everywhere. Like literally everywhere.
But I guess you could say the same thing about even photos or videos. Like these days you got Photoshop, video editing software. It's like, how can we be sure any of this footage is real?
Well, at that point, it's just honor code of like, you know, here's the video. If you don't think I'm credible, then you don't have to believe me. But, you know, this is what it is. Whereas with like a spirit box, all it is actually just a radio that's modified to sweep between channels very quickly, which creates that classic white noise sound that's just the radio stations changing over and over. So any word you hear come out of a spirit box is not a ghost coming through, it's a radio station coming through. That's it. A REM pod could be radio waves going through. You know what I mean? A lot of these devices can be explained very easily as not paranormal at all, which is why I kind of encourage a lot of people, like, why don't you use devices that have nothing to do with ghost hunting? Like an infrared motion sensor that detects light and heat. You know, if there's a big heat change in front of it and nobody's in front of it, why is it going off? You know what I mean? You catch something in front of a normal camera, you can't explain it with lighting. What is it? You know what I mean? Just use regular old equipment to try and catch it and monitor.
Yeah. Another thing I wanted to ask you was about Crawford Road.
Road.
So I know, like, everybody that's probably grown up in this area has heard stories about Crawford Road being haunted. I think you made a video or somewhere that you went to Crawford Road to investigate there.
Yeah.
The cops came and kicked you out.
Yeah.
What have you heard about Crawford Road? How was this experience there?
So Crawford Road, the rumor as to why it's haunting for the people watching that are unfamiliar is pretty much, there's a couple theories. One of them is that there was a runaway bride that came under the bridge and like hung herself and her ghost is there. There's also a rumor that, I don't know if I could share it on the podcast. It's a little extreme, but it's the one with
You say whatever I think.
Okay. They believe that the KKK would hang out under the bridge and
hang people.
Do what they did. Is another theory, and that's pretty much just the main two ones as to why they think it's haunted. But you know what's interesting? I've seen so many investigators go there, and I've really never seen anything compelling.
I mean, is there actual like police cases? Like, has there bodies been found over there, or
There's a lot of.
it's all rumors?
I think it's pretty much just urban legend. It's
Okay.
Most of it is rumors, really. Definitely a creepy spot though.
We went down there once, like back in high school. It's like that skinny road.
Oh, yeah.
You get down there and it's kind of like the bridge right there.
Super.
So you went
creepy.
out there with
Oh,
your
yeah.
team.
Yeah, I went out there and I step out of the car for literally like 2 minutes, and some trucker drives by and he yells something at me, something, and he was a very country guy. I couldn't understand. And then 3 seconds later, the cop shows up and you're like, "You can't be here." I was like, "Okay." And that was it pretty much. But I mean, if you're like a person who's into like creepy stuff or like a horror fan, sightseer, and you're in the area, Crawford Road's a cool spot to check out. Definitely creepy. It's fun to kind of spook yourself with your friends, but I wouldn't say it's super haunted. Another famously haunted road around here, which is actually even closer than Crawford Road, is you ever heard anything about Elbow Road?
Elbow Road. I don't think so. What's that?
So Elbow Road is right by Elizabeth River, and people believe that it's really haunted. And Elbow Road, it's such a weird thing because there's an extremely high amount of accidents there. Because the road is a two-way road, extremely winding, tight road, and it's in a forest. So there's trees on either side. So if somebody's coming, you're not going to be able to see them. There's an insane amount of accidents on that road every year. So people believe that it's haunted.
You would think they'll put up some mirrors or something.
They put like
the big mirrors on both sides so you can see.
They try and put like when there's a sharp turn, which pretty much it's just constant sharp turns. Like you go down Elbow Road and it's just like this. They try to put those signs up where it's like, you have to turn right. And it's like, yeah, I can see that. It's just very tight. You know what I mean? People get in accidents there all the time. And I've
So you did an actual investigation there?
I was thinking about it because a lot of investigators around here go there. But then I realized, I was like, let me look into why people think it's haunted. And I did. And it was the story of a lady who pretty much used to live there in a trailer. And one day she was murdered pretty much. And the cop showed up to the scene and there was blood absolutely everywhere. And it was almost as if she had been dragged out of her back door. And yet there was the blood when the blood spatter analysis came in. It was pretty much, it came out that the murder had occurred probably hours and hours prior to when the cops showed up, based on the temperature of the blood and everything. But when police showed up on scene, there was a cup of coffee sitting on the table that was piping hot. And that's why people think it's like, oh, it's weird. Why, hot coffee, no one's been there for hours and hours. Here's why I didn't investigate it. Because this lady isn't real, okay? Maybe the case happened, but the urban legend of who she isn't real. Her name is Mrs. Wobble. What is elbow backwards?
Wobble?
Yeah. Completely made up story. I looked into it. I was like, let me see
What
if
the
there,
fuck?
I was like, let me see if there's any I was like, let me
Oh, that
look,
is.
I was like, let me see if there's any police report or like even a trailer in these woods or anything. Nothing I could find on it. I'm like, and this is the thing I try to tell people because they see I'm a paranormal investigator and they just think I have no critical thinking skills. I'm like, let me tell you right now, 90% of ghost hunting or hauntings or urban legends are fake. Literally 90%. It's that 10% where you really
You don't
catch
have
something.
like confirmation bias going into it.
Everyone has it to an extent. I try to keep it very neutral. I try, but that's why I bring a lot of skeptics on my investigations. You know what I mean? People who don't believe in ghosts at all come on my investigations just to, kind of get a different view of it, keep me grounded a little bit.
Hell yeah, bro. So look, last question I really have is, unless you want to touch on something else as well. Like I said, you're a young guy. You're 18. Your channel is kind of still getting off the ground. I think you have 4K subscribers.
Yeah.
I really like your narration skills, your storytelling skills. I think that could evolve into anything you want to do. You know, any type of journalism, any type of investigation, not just paranormal. How far do you see yourself going with this? What would you like your contribution to the field to be?
I want to bring in a new wave of investigators, because the trend we're kind of seeing right now is a lot of investigators are just in it for the thrill of maybe seeing something. But here's my thing. Almost like 90% of people you'll meet has one ghost story from their life or one weird thing they've seen happen to them. And yet, only around like 40-something% of people in the US believe in ghosts. And what I say is that if we can really bring the scientific community into the field of paranormal research and really look into these cases, I think we could find something groundbreaking. But the problem is the biggest investigators, the largest groups, are just in there for a thrill. So they're not going to bring the scientists. They don't care.
So you don't feel like this thing has really been seriously studied yet?
Oh, it's absolutely been seriously studied.
Like almost just like, for example, like psychedelics. I know for a while, like psychedelics was studied by these like underground people. It wasn't taken seriously by academia.
Yeah.
Do you feel like paranormal investigation is still at that level, or is it?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
There have been paranormal cases where scientific people were involved, but it hasn't happened enough to where we found something actually groundbreaking. And I want it to be more normalized to have scientific people in the community to come in, because every paranormal documentary in which they brought scientific people in, whether it be the House in Between series or the Demon House documentary, or, you know, even the possession from the 70s of Annalise Michel, where psychologists and doctors analyzed what was going on with her, every single time the scientific community is brought in, we get something groundbreaking. Every time. With the Demon House, Dr. Barry Taff, who is he's great. He's the ultimate PhD holder. He has crazy credentials. And he went to the Demon House in his all of his organs failed within the next week. And that's, you know, one of the times they brought in somebody from the scientific community in, and he admitted he thinks it was strange. Or with Annalise Michel, you know, doctors were brought in, psychologists were brought in. The doctor said, oh, these possessed fits, oh, it's just these weird seizures. Let's put her on seizure medication. The psychologist said, oh, you know, she has these mental illnesses. And yet, Annalise Michel died of starvation. And when the autopsy came out, she had no ulcers on her body. It's almost impossible to die of starvation without having any ulcers in your body. And she hadn't eaten for, I think, according to the doctors, upwards of 40 days. And she was still alive.
With no ulcers.
And that's when the scientific community was brought in. The House in Between series, when the scientific people were brought in, they caught crazy activity. The investigators lived in the house for over 3 years with CCTV running 24/7 to catch activity, which they did catch insane activity. Like every single time somebody makes an effort to bring credible people in, like scientists, something groundbreaking happens. And yet it's still so rare. And I don't understand that.
So, okay, so people that are watching, definitely check out your channel. And what other channels you think they should check out that you find credible, you find like are further in the field?
BuzzFeed Unsolved, again, are great because they really show... They're probably the most genuine investigators I've seen personally. They show the boring, they show the scary, they show everything. So when you watch BuzzFeed Unsolved, one of their investigations, that's what it's like, actually investigating. If you want to get into it, watch them. That's what it's really like. BuzzFeed Unsolved, Ghost Files, they're all great. The House in Between, both those documentaries are incredible. You can watch them for free on Tubi. Demon House is incredible. You can watch that for free on Tubi. Even the original Ghost Adventures documentary, for what it was at the time, a lot of the stuff in that documentary people still haven't been able to explain. And, you know, it's all great watches. That's what I would direct people towards, for sure.
But, Will, Thank you. Oh, so actually, last question. Where's your next investigation? Where are you going to next?
Next investigation is most likely it's the haunted cabin on 360 in Mechanicsville, Virginia.
Okay. Stay tuned to that. For that, I'll be tuning in. Thank you, bro. I think this was super interesting.
man.
Excited to see what else you got coming. If you guys are watching this, we appreciate you for tuning in. All bros links will be in the description. Is there anything else you want to touch on? Anything else you want to lead the people with? What's your next event? You have another event where people can buy tickets to?
We have a paranormal event coming up on November 1st, organized by Annie Yu at Mojo Photoko. There's going to be over 50 creepy, haunted, horror fan vendors there. There's going to be food trucks, and I'm the special guest. I will be there. You can come in and meet me and see some haunted objects I'll have on display.
This is a free event or people
Free
buying
event.
tickets? Okay.
Nope, free event. You can just walk right on in.
And where's that again?
That is at Back Bay Brewery in Kempsville
Okay.
on November 1st.
Hell yeah. Thank you, bro.
Yeah, thank you for having me on.
Peace. Come on.